Good morning, everyone. Hopefully, you're enjoying a beautiful Monday morning or afternoon, depending on where you may be right now in the world. I'm Catalina Guanta. I'm an associate professor at Utrecht University, and I'm going to be your host today for this webinar that we plan to offer to everyone who's interested in the creator space on behalf of the Influencer Legal Hub and the European Commission and INOR and Utrecht University, these three institutions that are currently working on the Influencer Legal Hub. Perhaps you have seen in the news, you have seen if you're looking at European policy, that right now all eyes are on influencers. Why is that? Because sometimes there are scandals, sometimes there is a pink sauce that someone will make in their kitchen and will start selling it to consumers across the world. Other times, there are going to be issues with drop shipping and all sorts of product issues and product harms that can affect children, that can affect any kind of demographic. And this brings us to a very important topic that is often not really given enough attention to, namely the product safety topic. So we have gathered a fantastic panelist lineup here for you today so that we can discuss, on the one hand, the characteristics of European law that is applicable in this space, but then also discuss in very, very practical terms how these characteristics and these rules actually are relevant and are applicable to the influencer space. I'm going to be referring to influencers and content creators interchangeably, but perhaps what is important to keep in mind is that most specifically, the term influencer and influencer marketing, we could say is linked rather to the advertising part of the commerce industry, and whereas the content creator tag can entail much more than just advertising. It can also entail selling, and that's why it's important that we have this conversation. We hope to have a very organic and flowing conversation, and after presentations and also discussions with our very distinguished panelists, we're also going to get some questions from you. Before I give the floor to Barry to kick us off, I should say that this meeting is recorded because it is going to be a recorded webinar that will be added to our wonderful repository, the Influencer Legal Hub. So you can always rewatch it there if you're interested in very specific parts of the discussion. We will also share some slides with you later on, and you can also always contact us. We're going to add some email addresses in the chat as we go along, if you're interested to have this conversation even beyond the 1.5 hours that we have available here today. So we have the recording, we have the chat that we will use to communicate some additional information. And with no further ado, let me introduce you to Barry. Barry is a consultant working in the European Commission and the team responsible for enforcement and redress in consumer law. He has worked on a number of knowledge exchange projects in that context, including the Influencer Legal Hub. The Influencer Legal Hub being a resource containing information on the legal obligations of influencers that Barry will tell you much more about in a second. Barry, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Catalina, and thanks to everybody for showing up today. As Catalina mentioned, I've been involved in a number of knowledge exchange and education projects within the European Commission. And one thing I'd say about them is that generally they go pretty much according to plan. I mentioned that because the Influencer Legal Hub is actually a deviation from plan. This was something that was not envisaged in this particular strand of work. This particular strand of work was mostly going to be about working with enforcement organizations, really people within the business of consumer law. So what was the change in plan about? Basically, it was because influencers, again, as Catalina says, became just too difficult to ignore. It's an industry and a sector which has really grown to a very, very significant part of the consumer market, more than 3 billion euros worth of activities in European Union alone. So for that reason, the decision was made to extend this knowledge exchange program to include influencers. Now, I'm very happy that that decision was made. It's an incredibly dynamic and interesting sector. And looking at the agenda that we have today, we really have a very varied group of people and stakeholders coming together around what is a very, very important issue. The Influencers Legal Hub which Kathleen has already mentioned, is a repository of legal materials for influencers and people who work with influencers. So basically, a decision was made and a need was identified for this new burgeoning burgeoning sector, the influencer sector, which was to have more knowledge of legal responsibilities and legal rights. So I've got a 7-year-old son, so I know that I know Spider-Man as well as anyone. So with great power comes great responsibility. So it was seen that, now that influencers have this great power in markets, we're going to need to draw attention to the responsibility. So we created this hub, basically the Influencers Legal Hub, and the link will be put in the chat, where an influencer can go, an agent who works for influencers can go, and they can really just see what their legal responsibilities and obligations are. It's like a one-stop shop, basically, for finding out what you need to know in terms of consumer law and some other areas of law on the internet. So we hope that you will, if you're an influencer or if you work with influencers, you'll go to check that out afterwards. Today's event is particularly about product safety. If you could say that the Influencers Legal Hub is something which brings together the interests of the Commission and influencers, in that basically we're both about empowering, informing, and helping consumers. And then it could be said that in the area of product safety, this convergence of interests is even greater. I know that most influencers, really want to build trust. They want to offer useful information to their viewers. So, I mean, really, if it's a really most basic thing, I suppose, that you wouldn't want to be causing damage or harm or selling unsafe products. So, as I said, there's a really diverse group of stakeholders coming together here today. We've got people from academia, we've got people from policy, we've got people from law, we've got influencers agents. So we really have the opportunity here for a really fruitful and varied discussion. So I'm very, very much looking forward to today's session. So I just would encourage you during it, if there's any questions, please feel free to participate. There'll be opportunities for live questions and answers. We also have the chat open where we can feed questions through the participants that way. And hopefully we'll all learn plenty today, and there'll be a great fruitful exchange of ideas. I might just mention that next up, I'll be passing over to a colleague of mine, Kostas, who is specifically engaged in the area of product safety. So in terms of product safety systems, product safety policy, product safety law, he is an expert in that field. So he's going to kick us off, and then we'll hear from the other participants afterwards. So wishing you all a very great session.
Thank you, Bo, and good morning, everyone, also from my side. I'll share my presentation with you. We'll just give a quick overview of product safety legislation and the actions that we are doing at the European Commission before we move on to our panel. So I just wanted to start off with a slide of a communication campaign that we had a few years ago on the issues that can happen from product safety. And I think it is important to mention that even though this might seem a bit exaggerated or more of a communication stunt from us in order to get your attention, those kind of issues actually do happen very often. So there are fire hazards and there are explosion hazards with some of the products that we see. So this is not an issue that we just magnify in order to get attention, but those are real issues that we are concerned with. And this is a bit, I will present to you the legislation that we have in place in order to prevent this and what we are doing in terms of policy to support this. So we have the General Product Safety Regulation. The reason for this is that there is a huge consumer detriment. So unsafe products have a big cost on the market. So this is an important gap that we're trying to fill with this legislation to make sure that this money is not spent on mitigating risks created by unsafe products, but actually is used for improving things rather than solving problems. Therefore, we have the General Product Safety Regulation. It is what we call a safety net. This means that there are different legislations covering different sorts of products, but of course there's sometimes gaps in between those, or some products are designed in a way that avoids this kind of legislation and don't fall specifically under it. So for all the products that are not covered by any other type of legislation, we have the General Product Safety Regulation in order to make sure that there is no product on the market for which there is no regulation on its safety. I will go quite quickly through the slides because I have a lot of them, but there is a bit more information on them as you will see. So if you have any questions about them, feel free to ask, and they will be made available after this presentation. Another important element about the legislation is that it covers both products sold in physical shops, but also on online or distance sales, as we call them. So that is why it is also important for influencers or people that are in the online sphere, because it does not only cover products that are sold in physical shops, but any product sold in any way is covered by this general product safety regulation, which means that it needs to be safe. It also covers new secondhand shops. It covers reconditioned or refurbished products, and as the image on the right side might show, it also covers products like standalone software or online products. So if you're advertising an app or if you're promoting an app, this is also something that falls under the General Product Safety Regulation. So we need to make sure that also those products are safe. There are some exclusions that I leave here just as a means of example. So food, pharmaceuticals, fodder, and other things are not covered. But the general idea is that most non-food consumer products do fall under this legislation. What are the obligations? This is a big change that the General Product Safety Regulation brings because it's only in force since December last year. Before we had the General Product Safety Directive, which had a different structure. Now we have obligations depending on the role that someone plays in the economic in the line of bringing the product from the manufacturer to the consumer. So depending on what role you fulfill. And we have some information available on the website. There will be links at the end of the presentation to understand better what role you fulfill as an influencer. Depending on the role that you fulfill, you have different levels of obligations. So this is something that this regulation clarifies. In general, the obligations are both on the preventative side, so what to do to avoid having unsafe products, but also on the corrective side. So if for a reason a product seems not to be safe, despite the prevention that has been put into it, what do we do after this has been identified? And as I said, we have clear obligations by the different type of economic operators, so you will find all those quite clearly in the legislation, but also in supportive documents that we have produced. This is quite detailed, but I thought it's maybe interesting for influencers or people that advertise or sell products. On the right-hand side, especially for distance sales, this is something that might be interesting because those are the obligations that a product needs to have in order to be sold in the European market. So if you're advertising a product that is sold, or if you're selling the product yourself, you need to make sure that the elements on the right side are available in the listing that you're referring to, or if you're selling the products yourself, that you provide this information. Normally, most products should have this information on them. So if you have the physical packaging and you're reselling it, then you should be able to find this kind of information available. But this is the kind of things that you would need to make sure that are available in order to make sure that you comply with the legislation. I will talk briefly also about the project that we have, which is called CASP, the Coordinated Action on the Safety of Products, in order for you to understand better what national authorities are doing to help protect the European market and to make sure that products are safe. So this is a project organized at European level, and it is a collaboration between all the national market surveillance authorities of the different European member states. So they come together and they test different products. The process looks a bit like this. The European Commission proposes some products that will be tested, and national authorities decide if they want to participate or not. Then the national authorities go either online or into shops and sample products. So they will go to a shop or order something online and log it into a system that we have. Those products are then sent to testing facilities, to laboratories across the EU. They are checked to make sure that they comply with all the different rules. So for every different product, there are different standards or rules that they must comply with. So they are sent to a laboratory that does a very thorough testing. And then depending on whether if the product is okay, there is no measure taken by the market surveillance authorities and everything is fine. If, however, it is found that a product does not meet the requirements or there is something that is not right, the market surveillance authorities have different measures that they can take. For example, contacting the manufacturer. It can be that one specific batch of a product is malfunctioning while the rest is functioning very well. It can be that the whole product line is not working well. So depending on the issue and depending on the situation, the market surveillance authorities decide what kind of measures they will take, with the most severe one being that they remove the product from the market. And if they decide to remove the product from the market or if they take other measures, we have the safety gate system, which is an online system where market surveillance authorities exchange information. And you will see some further information here. So this is the description that I just gave. And there is a public part of this portal, that's the third bullet point in the slide, which is available to everyone. And this is maybe also interesting for you because as you will see here, you can just go and you can check if the product that you're planning to advertise or sell is available there. This is a good practice that we encourage because that means that you should not be selling this product if there is a measure taken against it, and it should not be sold on the market. There is one interesting feature, especially for the ones that are always focusing on the same kind of product, or if you're doing very often skin products or something of a specific type. We do have a subscription button, so every Friday you will get a weekly report of the products that have been that week identified in the market. So maybe this is something interesting if you're working with specific types of products, that you just get this automatically in your mailbox. And then I just wanted to spend 1 second on the web crawler that we've been working on. So this is a tool for national authorities. This is not something available to the public, but I just wanted to show that the online sphere is really of importance to the European institution and the national authorities. This is a machine learning software that basically takes all the information, all the data that is available in the Safety Gate portal and goes online and crawls different websites. So we check online marketplaces, we check different websites that are selling products to European consumers to make sure that none of the products that have actually already been identified in the Safety Gate system are available for sale, because this should not be the case. And then the seller is notified by the fact that they're selling a product that shouldn't be sold anymore. So there are a lot of things that are happening in the online sphere in order to make sure that no unsafe products are sold, including this kind of webinars and information that we provide to people working in this area. I thought to keep this as a quick recap of obligations that you have if you're selling products online. I won't go over it, but I thought it's maybe interesting as the slides will be made available for you to be able to come back to if you're interested in this. And then I finished with some links that are, again, I won't go over them now, but we have all the information that we provide are online, and hopefully next to the Influencer Legal Hub, which we have also provided a link to, you can also find further information here on different things. So thanks a lot for your attention, and I'm very happy to move to the next parts of this webinar.
Thank you so very much, Kostas, for giving us a primer on the applicable legislation. Very, very shortly, we're going to discuss also how this is relevant for the content creation industry. But now that we can get to our panel discussion, where we want to bring together, as Barry mentioned, different perspectives, because we notice that if we look at the media, then content creation can get really a very negative connotation. But then also, perhaps when we look at the law, it can get very complex. So we want to debunk some myths that might just stem out of legal illiteracy, which is unfortunate, but also completely understandable to a certain extent when we have such a web of rules. So that's why we're here to try to break this law down and try to understand how to debunk some myths. And with me to do that, I have this wonderful lineup of speakers. So apart from Kostas, who's going to join us on the panel, we also have a Sven Nauds, also known as Dikkes Vecke. He is a Belgian content creator and Twitch partner. He's actually one of the most followed Twitch streamers in Belgium. Because of the fact that he is so popular, and his content is so fantastic. He's been nominated 4 times for the Flemish Online Content Awards as the best live streamer. And what he does is he uses his deep passion for storytelling and entertainment, and he blends creativity, humor, and authenticity to put together not only Gen Z, but also millennial audiences. Welcome, Sven. Very nice to have you here today.
Thank you.
Then with us, we also have an academic, Gita. Gita is an associate professor, Gita Welt from Leiden University. She's an associate professor there, and she is one of the leading academics in Europe and beyond on product safety and European product safety. She has actually also gotten awards for her research on this topic. And she specializes in the interaction between EU law standardization and private law in relation to products. She is currently involved in quite a lot of empirical legal projects that deal with compliance and enforcement, particularly from the perspective of product safety, supply chains, and e-commerce. Welcome, Gita, to you as well.
Yeah, thank you, Catalina. Very nice being here and being able to contribute to this. Very important.
Wonderful. Then also to highlight more industry, we have with us Mohamed Mansouri. Mohamed is the Deputy Director of the Autorité de Régulation Professionnelle de la Publicité, so the French self-regulatory organization dealing with advertising. And he is one of the masterminds behind the introduction of the Certificate of Responsible Influence, but also the Certificate for Responsible Selling. So France is looking at different models and how to make the content creation industry work for content creators, but also, as Barry mentioned, for consumers as well. There's also an observatory that is based on AI and machine learning that the institution that Mohamed leads deals with, and he's also responsible for digital transactions and innovations within this institution. Mohamed, cannot wait to hear more from you. Welcome.
Thank you, Catalina. I'm glad to be here to share what have been set up here in France, and even here also with our European partner, the EASA, of course.
Wonderful. We will go into that very, very shortly. Now we also have, last but definitely not least, Jerry Spanakis from Maastricht University, who is an assistant professor at the Department of Advanced Computer Sciences and the Maastricht Law and Tech Lab. Jerry has been heavily working on product safety, and he also actually got an award from the European Commission, the Silver Product Safety Award in 2023, for his work and his leadership in computational work on product safety issues from online consumer reviews. And he focuses very much on social computing, computational social media modeling, and dialogue systems and information retrieval. So we also have an academic. Gita is the legal academic we have invited, and Jerry is the computer science academic, because we have a lot of questions about AI and how we can use AI in that respect. Welcome, Jerry.
Welcome. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Wonderful. So now that we're here with our panelists, perhaps we can go back to Kostas, because Kostas, you gave us this overview of the general product safety regulation. You mentioned businesses. On the Influencer Legal Hub, we also have this discussion about when exactly a creator is a business. So can you please elaborate a little bit more on how and why is this legal framework relevant for influencers and content creators?
Yes, thanks, Catalina. I think Barry mentioned it already in the beginning. Product safety is only one of the parts of the consumer legislation that we have. But in general, in all consumer legislation, anyone who is advertising or selling a product is considered as a trader. And this comes with certain responsibilities. This means that there are certain obligations that you need to meet. And we think that it's not always clear when you think that you're just promoting a product or just working together with a company, that it's not only the company that sells the product that has responsibilities, but also everyone else in the economic chain. So between the manufacturer, the moment that the product is created, and the moment that the consumer buys it, there are different obligations that you need to meet, and we want to avoid that people unknowingly take part in an activity that actually they do have some legal responsibilities and that are held liable afterwards for something that they didn't know that they're actually responsible to check. And we have understood that very often some content creators, especially probably if you're just starting out or if you haven't done this long enough, you think I'll just do this quickly and see maybe if I let's see how it goes, without necessarily realizing the implications that this has and what role you're playing in the economic sphere. And it's more than just making a video or making sure that your followers are happy with the content that you're providing, but you actually might have a liability issue coming if you're not doing it correctly. So this is what we're trying to avoid, and that's why we try to provide the legislation in a easy to understand way, because we also understand that if you are a content creator, you don't necessarily have an array of lawyers around you that can advise you, that can help you when you're starting off. And we try to make sure that this information is available in different formats for everyone to understand.
Great. And then basically what you're saying is that it's not only this type of law is not only relevant for creators when they sell something. So this is also what we have on the Influencer Legal Hub, this distinction between creators as sellers. So maybe they're selling merch, maybe they have a dropshipping business and they directly interact with consumers. But of course, you also have advertising. And what you're saying is that product safety legislation will be relevant for both situations, right?
Exactly.
Wonderful. And then we have all of these laws, but how do we know that they're being put in practice? You mentioned some initiatives of the Commission and also when it comes to market monitoring, but can you elaborate a little bit more about what tools authorities have, not just at European level, but also at national level, and just so that we raise awareness of the fact that it's not really a Wild West where everyone can just advertise and sell any products they wish, but that there are authorities looking at this matter and also at how the law is complied with.
Exactly. So it's a collaboration of the European and the national level. The authorities are mostly structured at national level. So each country has their own way of checking consumer legislation. This can be separate agencies that do it, or often it's a ministry, often the Ministry of Economy that is taking the role in actually making sure that the legislation is enforced and complied with. I think we had a similar webinar a while ago, and then there was also a sweep announced. So these are the kind of actions where we have a coordinated action of all consumer agencies or market surveillance agencies working together at the same time and focusing on specific types of products or specific types of issues. Very often on the online sphere, we check both. We had a sweep also that looks at online marketplaces. For example, we've looked at influencers before, and as I said, the results of this were announced recently. So it's a constant collaboration of national and European authorities, really looking at what is out there, and depending on the findings, also measures are taken to make sure that there are measures taken in order to prevent this from happening again, or to take measures against people who keep on doing things that are not in compliance with the legislation. And maybe as a last example, what I already mentioned in my presentations is the web crawler. So we are also looking at AI or machine learning or other ways of actually making sure that this is not done one product at a time, because of course there's only a limited number of people working in national organizations looking into this. So we're really trying to see what we can do and use technology in order to identify potential risks and things that we need to look closer into. So I'm also very happy that that Jerry is here, who can give maybe some more information on these kind of issues.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. This market monitoring, especially through more computational means, is a topic that we will come back to. But now moving to Sven. So we have heard about what the regulator is doing at European Union level, and also the very good reasons why we must have these laws, so protecting consumers. But you are out there making content regularly, and you have an audience that you are aiming to protect because you care for it. At the same time, you also have great commercial opportunities that you might want to engage with. So how do you balance these different interests?
Yeah, it's a very good question because of course on the one hand you need the money to kind of continue your endeavors in content creation, and on the other hand you want to create that special bond with your community where they can absolutely trust you with everything, um everything you say at least. And I think it's not always easy for content creators to navigate their way in the complex web of rules, like you said before, and also the complex web of just so many different websites and information hubs where you can actually kind of fact check things that come your way. And I think that's one of the things that, especially for people that are starting out, is maybe not very clear, and they will also not spend time to actually balance, okay, what do I need to check, what do I want to do. They will actually just only look at what do I want to do, and oh, this looks fine, I'll just do it, without really thinking of the consequences, or really thinking of how can I check this, how can I do this, just because mostly, and also one of the things you said in the beginning, they don't know. And that's I think the biggest issue is mostly, I won't say ignorance, because ignorance implies that people are not smart. I think these people are very smart, but they just don't get that information in their own life.
So, and then this legal information. So you're saying that, generally creators are not aware of this type of legal information, which, as we see, is very complex because product safety, Kostas emphasized that, Barry mentioned that again, is one of the puzzle pieces that will play a role in trying to understand, okay, how do we protect consumers? And, there's rules on standard terms and contracts if you're selling stuff. There's rules on advertising. We see here in the chat a link to the sweep conducted by the European Commission with national authorities on disclosure rates, which unfortunately remain rather abysmal. But so that remains a problem. But indeed, we have this very complex web of rules. So how do you think that? What do you see around you in the industry in terms of the creators' perspectives and initiatives towards their audiences? Do they do research? Where do you draw the line as to how much research you can do to actually protect your community?
So around me, I have to be honest and say that people with like bad intentions in content creation are very scarce. It's not a thing that I see a lot. I see most people kind of following the same path or thinking path that I used to do, just from the get-go, which is, would I sell this to my neighbor? Would I sell this to my friends? Would I sell this to my mother? And if the answer is no, that's already a big red flag, of course. And also, can I find enough information about this product? Is there if I just type the name in Google, is there enough information about the product, or am I just getting random weird pages or very few hits? That's one of the things that I used to do, to check. I do think that people need to get more information on how to check the every product or whatever they're selling. It doesn't have to be a product; it can also be a type of software, like we said, which is more. Yeah, it's not tangible, so it's very hard to kind of check a piece of software if you don't know it. But I think that's one of the things that I see around me, is that most people kind of follow this path of reasoning, and they really want to build that community. As I said before, there are of course malignant content creators who just want to make a lot of cash very quickly. Um, and those are mostly reposting accounts or anonymous accounts or accounts with no face behind them. Of course, there are a couple of content creators, as we know, that have sold products in the past that were not very very okay, as I'll say it very lightly. Um, but yeah, I think there's very few. It's the same as saying because the baker in your street sold bad bread, saying all the bakers are bad. I just think that's not the way of thinking, and unfortunately in the media it kind of that's the big problem as well, is that the media kind of really likes that, because it's to blow up bad cases of content creators, because it sells on their online platforms, of course.
Right, and we've seen also from more international media that there is this looming question about the sophistication of some products, especially if we're talking about digital products or mixed products. There was this honey scandal with a browser extension that we've heard a lot about. And for those of you following us who haven't followed that, we're talking about a browser extension offering discount codes that had a very, very sophisticated architecture, and even leading influencers at global level who were promoting it just did not know enough about it because it's a very sophisticated product. So perhaps that's something that we can come back to Costas also with. These hybrid goods or digital goods, which really pose a challenge right now. But speaking of digitalization and especially artificial intelligence, Sven, you've done some experiments with not legal information, but research perhaps, and what you were talking about, search for a product with AI. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was for the lack of a better word, it was very fun to do. I'll lead up with a very clickbaity title and saying we scammed our communities. That might keep people listening, uh, because we collaborated with VRT, which is like the national TV output, the Checkers Knack, which is a magazine, and Chase, they're an agency, and a couple of journalists and also fact checkers, of course, from the checkers. And we wanted to see how far we could go to like fool our communities with AI. How far can we go? Can we actually, the first question was, can we build an avatar of ourselves? Can someone actually, with the content we put out there, can somebody recreate us in AI? The answer was very easy. Yes, this is a year ago, and it was very easy back then. Leading up to this, I kind of rechecked how HeyGen is still working, and how other because HeyGen has a verification thing where you have to say I comply to this thing. Unfortunately, there's also AI you can just download, and you have to run it on a server, but it's quite easy, and it's very easy to copy. It took us about, I think, 10 to 15 minutes to create a full AI version of ourselves, including video and speech. And back then, it sounds like it's a long time ago. It's a year ago. It was very rudimentary. I will show the video later if I can. It's yeah, you can see the lips are a little bit weird. The speech is also a little bit weird, but if you would do it now, it would be kind of perfect. Um, and then we asked AI, okay, we want to sell a product that feels real, but it can also has like dangerous kind of properties about it. What can we do? And it has to speak to gamers, because of course me and Zigzag Kitty, who also worked on this project, we have a big gaming community, and AI came up with, because our goal was to have AI do all the work, see how fast we can pump out a campaign that could potentially get money. Um, and AI came up with a protein bar. Very very cool, very hip back then. But the protein bar also, in the elevator pitch, I will say, claimed that it would alter your brain waves, which is, when I hear that, I think, whoa, that doesn't sound great. Like, any doctor would say, like, something that alters your brain waves is probably not very, very nice, very good. and that it would also alter the connections in your brain so that you can game faster. To me, that sounds like hard drugs. To apparently the 4,300 people that subscribed to the newsletter of this fake protein bar, it sounded great. Which to me it was crazy. I thought that we would have like maybe 10 people who signed up to the page for a joke, but there was actually real interest. So what we did is we generated a script that my avatar said. Esther Zixakidi's avatar also said. We made a new bar. If you want to see it, buy it. Our audience, our own community, I feel like they kind of, because they know us, they kind of they saw through it. But all the people that we reached through organic, and of course we tried, let's advertise this, let's see what happens. There was never a real chance. We never asked for any money, by the way, but we could have. I think if we asked 5 or 10 euros, people would have just paid it. Seeing the engagement and the actual interest. So we put an advertisement on it and people fell for it. People really fell hard for it. We had a website that was coded by AI. We didn't do anything to it. We generated the bar with AI. We just said like, okay, this is all the stuff. Just code a website for us. And it looked great. Unfortunately, the website has been taken down, of course, because we don't want any people to keep to see that. And we just threw slick branding, held buzzwords, and people just really fell for it. And this was just back in the time where ChatGPT was a year ago. It doesn't sound long ago, but ChatGPT was really not at the stage that it is now. Midjourney was not at the stage that it is now. I feel that it's if in its current state, you could easily fool a lot of people with AI. Should I show the video?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right.
That's crazy. Also, as a consumer academic, it's so scary that these things exist right now. And basically, what you're saying is we have scamming as a service that can be just generated with AI.
That's it. So can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, remember this is a year ago, so it's quite rudimentary, and it's also made by us, amateurs, total amateurs.
We don't have the audio, but we're gonna do the link in the chat. So, but this is crazy because it looks so good.
Can I
Yeah.
do the audio? Because the audio
You can reshare and then you can just share the audio with the
yeah, let me sorry about that. Because the voice, I think the voice was the best. Nieuwe samenwerking. Ik mag er nog niet veel over zeggen, maar het is echt zalig. Deze keer met de nieuwe bar Griffin. Een bar die rechtstreeks op je brainwaves inspeelt. Op 8 december hebben we een exclusieve launch stream, dus ga zeker naar de website voor meer info.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So people were hungry for brain wave altering Griffin protein bar, you're saying?
And the crazy thing is we did not alter this at all. We just said to AI like, okay, make us a bar. Okay, the bar looked great. All right, add what do you think would be nice to add? Oh, he said sugar-free, plant-based, and gluten-free, something people will buy. And then he made the whole thing, and then of course leading after that we did a whole live stream. This is Brecht van Kastel. He's a journalist. I forgot her name. I'm really sorry about that, but she's a fact checker and a journalist as well. They're both fact checkers, by the way. This is Sixakiti, this is me. And we talked for about 2 hours on the impact of AI, the positive the things of AI. Oh, wait, you can't see my screen anymore, or can you?
Not anymore, no.
Okay, that's fine. So anyway, you can find the thing on YouTube. It's a full 2-hour conversation, and we kind of debunked a lot of things. We also debunked the fact that a lot of things are actually made by AI. It's not, we're not yet there. I think the threat is not that big now with content creators. I think content creators still find that their community, building their community on a very ethical way, is the best way to go, because else you will, once you get found out, I will say, it will burn out quite quickly. So I don't think that's the goal of most content creators, but it is a thing that we need to watch out for. And also a second thing that I did not write in my preparations, But a thing that we kind of found out as well is that we found it kind of strange that Instagram and TikTok did not detect this. We put an ad on it, did not detect it. They didn't even question anything. They were just like, okay, you're just putting money into it, so that's great. Bring on more money. And that's also this whole 5 minutes of talk that I just did now is really leading up to the problems. Is content creators and audiences are not trained well enough into fact check themselves, check whatever, or just check things, how to check things. They're not trained well enough into that, and also the platforms tend to not take enough responsibility in a lot of matters, not only the product safety matters, but also just the matters of AI, the misuse of AI, and the misuse of platforms for kind of bad things, I'll say. So that's kind of the whole experiment in a couple of sentences.
Thanks so much for sharing this with us. It's quite scary because, on the one hand, of course, we've seen these kind of scams in the past as well, maybe with less well-looking AI-generated stuff. But we've seen, for instance, ads with Elon Musk and different types of cryptocurrencies that were completely scammer content made for YouTube and also as for the ad repository. So again, the same thing that you're saying, that no questions were asked, no filters were added, or maybe the standard of that filtering is too high for these ads to actually pass them. That's just an anecdotal maybe idea, but at the same time, I think what you're also showing is that there are some very specific risks for creators to be impersonated and then for consumers to be scammed using creator identities as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's the other side, of course, of this. In this case, we did it ourselves, but in the other case, we could, because that's what they first proposed to us, and I said we cannot do that even as a joke. They said, like, can we use a big personality and copy them and do that? And I'm like, yes, we can, but even as a joke, it's not ethical, and that's also what the journalists said, because of course journalists have an ethical code. They said no, we would lose our jobs if we do that. Even for the research, it's just not a thing we can do. Of course, we tested it behind the screens, and now I could in 5 minutes I could do PewDiePie.
Yeah.
Not even 5 minutes, and I could immediately say, make up a product that could get me a lot of money, and it would generate. So and takeaway I really want to say, because there's a lot of people watching, the takeaway here is not, oh, content creators are bad people making AI avatars of other people to get money. The takeaway is we need to educate people on how to recognize this, how to protect themselves from getting their content copied, even as content creators, and just train a lot of give more training to everyone on how to detect badly used AI, I will say, AI in a bad way, but also in product safety, just in general, is we really need more tools for it. And I also think the platforms, besides of course the content creators and the people, the consumers, the platforms really need to take to come up to the stand to actually provide the tools to do that.
Thanks so much. We're going to come back to some of the points that you mentioned, because I think, especially when it comes to platforms and the role of platforms, that's a hot potato. But now, Hita, you've heard about this experiment. And then, of course, we have in consumer law this standard of the average consumer who's supposed to be very circumspect, who is supposed to know a lot of things about how the market works. And in real life, it's not really like that. And we have this example from Sven. So what do you think are the limits of our current legal framework, and where do we draw the line when it comes to who should do what research and what is beyond their possibilities?
Yeah, I think the point when is trying to make that it's not only consumers who are getting scammed or misled by these type of advertisings. It's also content creators themselves who will be approached with regard to certain products that look really professional, that look really interesting, that look commercially interesting. Also for them, it's really difficult to find out where is this product coming from and how safe is it actually. And I do agree with Sven that people, in general, we also know that from research, there are, of course, rogue traders, but that's a really limited amount of people. The majority is just not skilled and aware enough of the problems that are going on to do extra checks. So that's why it's also important that we have a webinar like this. But it's for content creators. I think it's very important to know that, as Kostas also pointed out, it's not only when you're actually selling as a traditional seller stuff online, but also if you're handing out goodie bags or providing samples of certain products to consumers online through your account, that you could already be making available product on the European market, and that makes you subject to this whole product safety legislation framework with all the obligations under it. So that does require you to check SafetyGate. It does require you to check whether the name is on the product of a responsible person on EU soil or not. And if it's not there, and you are the first one making this product available on the market, then you could be qualifying as an importer yourself. With all the heavier obligations under the framework applicable. So yeah, and that is something that people are not aware of. So good to be aware of. And then a next question would be, okay, what do we think about this? You know, is this reasonable or is this fair towards influencers that the legal framework is as it is? And this is something, of course, European Commission, you can see from the legal text itself, is struggling with as well. And on one hand, we want to provide market access and opportunities for young entrepreneurs to enter the European market with new services and new products. But at the same time, of course, we want those products to be safe. And in the end, safety of consumers and health and safety is such an important interest that trumps, I think, all other interests easily. So good that the obligations are strict, but this practical problem of people not being aware of it and not having the tools to live up to it, that is a reoccurring theme. But I think there is a lot you can do. So check the product. If you receive a sample as an influencer of a certain product that you want to promote online, check these details. Also check the name. Is this a person registered in the local chamber of commerce, for example? Those are things that you can easily check. Also for yourself, it's not only because it's a legal obligation, but as Sven also pointed out, you do not want to be the one providing a dodgy product to your followers. So there's also just a personal interest of doing this. And also you want to sleep at night, right? You do not want to feel uncomfortable thinking, okay, there could be people being affected by this thing that I am now promoting online. So that is important to do. And also be aware, you could go even further, especially if you have a huge group of followers and there's a lot of money involved in the promotion that you are doing. Very wise to draft a contract, very wise to make explicit contractual provisions about having all the product safety documentation that a person that wants to enter the European market should have in place. So technical files, testing, maybe certification by notified bodies, stuff like that. This is something maybe if you do not have it yourself or you're not aware of yourself, you can put it in the contracts that you are closing with the ones you are going to promote these products for. And of course, this is a bit of a slippery slope. I can imagine that if you are a small content creator with not so many followers, and you do not have a lot of legal expertise, you start small, be aware that even then you can be held responsible. But especially when your business is growing, I think it's definitely something to pay attention to, and maybe also take out insurance. For example, if one of these products that you are promoting ever causes harm to someone, you do not want to be fully responsible of paying these claims. You want some security to fall back on. So yeah, there is a lot of people can do. People are just not aware, and therefore good to have this type of seminars to pay a bit more attention to that. Yeah.
So Rita, basically better safe than sorry. And
Yes,
even if there
exactly.
isn't a very deep understanding of the law, and even if there might be some unclarity, because what you're saying also is, we notice this also with advertising, not just with product safety, that there's a lot of uncertainty as to who exactly should be following consumer rules. And we have in the Influencer Legal Hub also various checks and boxes that you can tick and see, do I qualify to be a trader, basically a business, although I'm not necessarily a registered company. I can also be an individual and be considered a trader under European consumer law. But what you're saying is, if you're not sure of that, better safe than sorry. So would that be
Yeah, and this is something, of course, that could be improved from a legislative point of view. That we work with different notions and different types of actors under different frameworks. But this is getting more and more harmonized and getting better. So the General Product Safety Regulation in its newest form is already better than the previous versions. And yeah, in practice, there will always be a certain amount of legal uncertainty, especially with regard to these new types of businesses and what people are doing. But yeah, indeed, Catalina, better safe than sorry. That should be the message.
Thanks a lot, Rita. So we see that there's a lot of uncertainty remaining about how to understand, how to find, and how to apply the law. But luckily for us, the RPP already has some very practical solutions and how you can get educated in that. So Mohammed is going to tell us all about the certification processes at the RPP. Mohammed.
Yes, yes, of course. Um, we've launched two certificates. The first one, it was in 2021, and it was about influence marketing, and the second one about the social setting. So, but it all started with an observatory that we renew every year, that we've launched 6 years ago, actually, that use today AI. It we started with advanced technologies and keywords and some machine learning, but from this year we are using Gen AI. I'll talk about this later. So what the industry that steer this observatory, this observatory highlighted the importance of education. The largest proportion of breaches concern small influencers, and this is true every year. For example, last year, the non-compliance rate about transparency for influencers that have less than 10,000 influencers was 15%. And those that have more than 1 million of followers was only 5%. But 5 years ago, it was 43% for small influencers and about around 12% for big influencers. Not because they don't want to respect the legal framework or the ethical framework, because they don't have the legal support, they don't have any agent, and they need education, they need pedagogy. So I think we're all aligned with that. So we launched this educational program culminating with an examination, and this was really successful because for many reasons. I'll come back later on these reasons, but on the strength of the success of the responsible influence certificate, the profession involved in social networks, in selling in social networks, gathered at the RPP. So there was the Federation of Direct Selling, the Federation of Instant Selling, the Advertiser Federation, but also platforms such as Meta, TikTok, Google, that are also members of our organization, decided to set up an educational system specifically for social sellers. So an ad hoc monitoring committee have been set up. Social selling, we can define that as is a sales approach that involves using social media to interact, to engage, and to build relationships with a prospect and potential customers. And we noticed that this sector is booming, actually. We had here in France a recent study which found that people surveyed favor recommendations from someone they know, even they don't know, but whom they trust, at the main chasing level, far more classical advertising. 51% for the population as a whole, up to 10 points for 4 years, and 58 for Gen Z and 63% for among the 15, 17 years old. They give more credit about their recommendation of people they follow. So to support this, we worked alongside the industry to launch this responsible social selling certificate as an e-learning course with an exam, which covers the basic rules of legal, fair, and ethical communication and selling. So we based on the success of this first certificate in influence marketing. So we have therefore created this certificate, and within the course we have so an illustrated presentation with examples to follow or to avoid, covering essential rules of online sales, and the content we cover subjects such as price information, product characteristics, sorry, withdrawal periods, delivery and guarantee conditions, protection of confidential information, personal data, and also fighting against counterfeits. We worked with the Manufacturer Association, UNIFAB, here in France, and we've created a specific module about counterfeit, because there is now real issues about security, about the health, about the bad impact on economy, but also the environment, of course. And we're also raising awareness of ethical issues such as the fight against greenwashing, protection of minors, responsible communication, and so on. So today we have 2,200 certified profiles, and it includes 250 profiles based specifically on social selling, social sellers. So it's a real education tool that we've set up, and we now, of course, fortunately, a real improvement on these practices.
That sounds really fantastic, especially because we see that social commerce is really on the rise. We see that YouTube is collaborating with Shopify. TikTok is opening TikTok Shop in increasingly more European countries. And then products can be not only sold, as we saw that anyone can actually start a drop shipping business, and then even create various aspects of that business with AI. But then you can also buy all of these products at the click of at the tap of a button on your mobile phone. So we see that that's very important. What do you think was the reaction to this type of certification? So you were mentioning some numbers about disclosures, and you were mentioning some partners that you have been working with, but the general reaction to this type of certification, what are creators saying in terms of maybe appreciating or finding it even more complex? What did you see in practice?
What we see is that there is a real desire of content creators to get professionalized and to show it. They understand if there's no trust, there's no business, and that's the fact for every players, advertisers, agencies, and also influencers. So they really want to show that they protect their audience. They also show they want to differentiate themselves from the perpetrators of bad practices, of scammers that given them such bad image of the sector. So there is a real virtuous effect because influencers influence each other, and some of them post about obtaining the certificate on social networks, and even some of them have devoted entire videos it on YouTube. So there is a real spread of this education tool, and they want to show it. They really want to. They're engaged in it. We made some also to raise awareness. We made also some education campaigns with platforms. We made one with Meta, which was completely successful. We reached about 30,000 views. One with videos where a content creator was explaining why she has passed the exam, the certificate, and why it is important for her and for her audiences. So there is a real they're really engaged in it. But not only the content creators, also the agencies that have created some of them high quality, brand safe offers to their clients, to the brands, to ensure that it's a risk-free communication. So it helps to improve the practices, and the fact that there was also some scandals here at the national level that lead to this law, specific law that is the legal framework of influence marketing here in France, helped also to make his certificate renowned, and really content creators wanted to show that they were really attached to doing a business that can last over the time. But of course, we also control these certification, because they all take commitment to respect the rules when they pass it. So thanks to the observatory, we can check whether their content complies with the rules or not. And since this year, we've integrated Gen AI. We are using a RAG approach. It means that we have personalized the algorithms to our code, to our copy advice, to our all material that we use to build over the years, to get more precise result to our prompting approach. So now we used to check around 30,000 contents per year the years before, but this year the objective is to reach 400,000 contents thanks to AI. We are prompting simple questions and we ask to the Gen AI to ask yes or no, so that we can upscale the statistics, and we have also enlarged the scope, because it covers also seemingly organic content. You catch also the disguised advertising. The years before, we used to check some clues if there was a commercial relationship. Now, the fact that these models understand the context of content, we can see what's happening under the level of the sea. If you see what I mean. So we'll see by the end of the year whether the level of compliance are actually cannot be compared with the methodologies of the previous years, but we'll see whether I can tell you that we can catch some content that we couldn't catch before thanks to AI so far.
That's fascinating. So basically, you have a certificate, and the creators get knowledge about the law. They understand the rules, and then they also know that, okay, there's someone in here watching if we actually apply the rules, and that's to be desired, especially if we compare this to other types of legal obligations and other types of approaches of making such laws, where maybe there can be criminal sanctions. There was recently an influencer arrested in France for a non-compliance with that particular law. So basically, complying with the conditions of the certificate can be a much safer approach for creators to do their business right.
Indeed. But there are also other actions that we take with the industry. There are the certificates, but also there are a lot of training, master classes, and we've set up also a specific advice, legal and ethical advice service to content creators that have been certified, called Allo Influence Responsable, Allo Responsible Influence. So it's a WhatsApp service, and the legal counsels here can respond to the questions if they have questions about should I label like this, or if I promote this kind of product, is it legal or not? How can I promote this kind of what I received this brief from a brand? Do you think it's compliant or not? So it's a real service. And we've also launched a club, a specific club dedicated to the certified profiles, called the Club des Créateurs Certifiés, which is a quarterly meeting designed to raise awareness of specific ethical issues such as mental health, the protection of minors, the fight against counterfeiting I was talking about, and the children protection, for example. So we're trying to animate this community, give them some appointments, and and we invite also influencers and content creators to give them the voice to make some education and to raise awareness about these topics.
Thanks so much. And I see Gita wants to react immediately. So Gita, the floor is yours.
My apologies. Somehow I clicked on that.
So,
But I think it is a wonderful initiative, or at least if the impact can be so big, and it is also something we see from research that any type of commercial entity is always very much invested in keeping up high reputation, and reputational risk is a big driver in making sure they comply. So this is in line with that.
Great. So
Thank you.
maybe Pita doesn't have a remark, but we do have Rogier Lareis from the Flemish Media Authority who asks a question in the chat for you, Mohammed. So perhaps we can deal with that immediately. Is it correct to say that the RIPP will monitor 400,000 content creators this year, or is it 400,000 pieces of content?
Pieces of content.
Right. So here you can have a look at the website, because I think past reports also reported on pieces of content, right, Mohammed?
Yeah, absolutely. And not only commercial content, actually, also organic content, because they may hide sometimes some commercial content.
Thank you so very much. On the AI note, we turn now to our computer scientist in the room, who is not only working with AI, but also designing this type of technology. Jerry, you've been doing some award-winning work on detecting unsafe products using different types of data from the internet. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. I'll talk a bit about the research we've been doing, which has been done also pre-ChatGPT era, where we actually answer the simple question: can we use bad product reviews to catch potentially unsafe products? And this research started from the basic observation that when I was first shown the SafetyGate portal, I thought, great, so we have this data resource, so our work here is done, right? We log everything. It's a machine readable way, and great. And then I was immediately made the observation by my colleague, but also by product safety authorities, that when a product makes it to SafetyGate, it might be potentially too late, because it means that some product has been identified, there has been some investigation, there has been all the proper, let's say, documentation, then the product has been logged and it made it to SafetyGate. So we wanted to apply this concept of what I call maybe proactive compliance and proactive monitoring, and use and try to link data from SafetyGate, so potentially safety risk descriptions, with online reviews that people post. And I talk about consumer reviews because probably you have been there, that once you buy a product that doesn't conform to your standards, either in terms of practicalities, but even of safety, people have a tendency to go on a rant and post online, right? So I fetched up some of the online reviews we scraped from some marketplace, and I read randomly, the battery overheated in my hand while I was brushing my teeth. This toy broke in half and my toddler swallowed the piece. Started smoking while plugged in overnight. These earrings, my eyes started bleeding and turned in a different color. This ladder folded on itself while it broke my wrist. There was a fake CE mark and the plug doesn't fit the sockets, and I could go on and on. So what we're doing is that taking risk descriptions from the SafetyGate, where sometimes they're described in a very formal way, like for example, there is a risk for asphyxiation. People will not write asphyxiation in their online reviews, but they write similar language. Like for example, there might be fumes, and then I might gasp. So using machine learning, we try to filter the zoo of online reviews in order to flag potentially unsafe reviews, where they might mention like the product caught fire or there was a choking hazard and so on. And we practically sift through the noise and the data of online reviews and detect potentially unsafe products automatically. So the end result of this is a nice framework which can use AI in a way to crowdsource product safety, one, let's say, consumer review at a time.
Wonderful. And what were the biggest challenges with this type of research, and what could be standardized in a way that could enable even more monitoring to this extent? Because I think what we're hearing throughout this entire conversation is that scale is a very big problem, and perhaps not to be too techno-solutionist, but perhaps technology can provide us an actual solution for the scale issue when it comes to checking product safety. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So one of the, again, So one of the, let's say, big thoughts I have on this topic is that one data source is not enough, right? We need to link data resources, and this is what we try to do with online reviews. But of course, we had to, scrape these reviews, download them, then the scraper the next day didn't work, so you had to adapt it. So you had all these kind of, I would say, interoperability issues, but this can be solved through standardization of data sharing and information, right? Nobody wants to do standardization because it's boring, but it could actually help in cases like safety. And I think we all agree that all products should be safe. So in that sense, standardization, synchronization, machine readability, not only for, let's say, sources like SafetyGate, which is already machine readable database, but forcing platforms and also marketplaces to have open APIs, application programming interfaces, so that the information is flowed without having to, download the review, trying to match it with the safety gate and so on.
And for those following us who haven't been following this discussion about data access, which is particularly a Digital Services Act discussion, and you have been working on that, Jerry, as well. What are the current limitations of data access, and how can we solve them? Maybe a very big question, but let's dream big.
Yeah, very big question, right? But as probably everybody who listens knows, and I think we already mentioned it, right? Like since Ben mentioned it, that platforms sit on a lot of data, right? So we're talking about more the need for more structured metadata. We talked about age limit information, compliance, budgets, everything, but the platforms sit on this type of data, but they're not available, let's say, for researchers in order to identify whether, there is a big issue or not. So in that sense, that under the Digital Services Act and the Article 40, researchers should get access, and that would be an important step forward. But as I said, right, we're talking about, again, forcing platforms the same way they report, let's say, moderating decisions on the Data Services Act and the DCA Transparency Database. There's I see no problem of pushing them to do the same thing and plugging, let's say, warnings straight into, again, a similar database should exactly facilitate the flow of information. But again, maybe that's easier said than done.
Thanks so much, Jerry. And we are sharing links to a lot of this research in the chat, more links to come. And for those of you who have questions, we also have the Q&A feature that you can use. So please do ask your questions. Of course, you can also use the chat. A question that I had for Kostas directly about the GPSR and also these very sophisticated products that could have a digital component, or for fully digital products, are they covered by the GPSR? And if so, how should we analyze that?
Yes, they are covered by the GPSR or by other legislation. So there are also a number of different legislations that could cover online products. The opinion of the Commission is that fully self-scanning software is also covered by the GPSR. We have had some cases where this has been the case, where we have looked into this. There was a very sad case in Belgium, for example, with suicide of a person following an interaction with a chatbot. So this kind of chatbot. AI powered apps would also fall under the GPSR. It's a very different way of looking at this, because it's not physical safety that we're used to. Mental health is also mentioned in the GPSR for the first time worldwide, also as an issue that should be taken into account. We are working very actively with authorities, and we also have training modules ongoing at the moment for national authorities that are looking into these kind of new products. So it's a learning curve for everyone, let's say, on how to tackle those products, but definitely they would fall in the scope of the GPSR, and we're really trying our best to be on top of whatever comes out. and to make sure that the spirit of the legislation is followed in the sense of preventing as much as possible whatever we can before it actually reaches such a moment, rather than having to deal with the consequences of what we do after it has been identified.
This is a very, very interesting perspective because these kind of products, I think, are also very popular in different categories of content creation. So, for instance, making apps or providing all sorts of digital content and digital products that really will need the question of, is this safe? Are there security standards that are followed? Is this in any way affecting consumers beyond? So, you were also mentioning other types of harm. So, not just maybe pecuniary harm that you might have from losing an account or losing data from an account that could be monetized like that, but the question of psychological harms, where we can see that there is this increasing interaction between technology and well-being, and also the European Union is very much looking at the question of whether to do something about this topic. So thanks so much, Kostas. Gita, do you have anything to add to this dual use product topology or digital products?
No, I'm really glad that you see now this shift also in the safety framework to also take into account these new harms. And also in product liability, there's more emphasis on that side of the coin as well. So that's really good. So yeah. And still a lot of research still to be done. It all raises new legal questions, of course, on how this will in practice will be applied, and there are new gray areas now. But yeah, one step at a time, right? So we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mohammed, at the RPP, when we're dealing with these kind of very fast-paced developments, so we see that there are new, maybe generations of products, new legal questions. How do you incorporate that in the certification process? And how do you perhaps deal with this risk dimension of the interpretation of the law?
We're trying to do some what we call legal design to make the rule the more accessible as possible with a lot of illustrations. We integrate a lot of materials. Actually, we integrate also the Influencer Hub materials and all the things that you have in your repo directly to make them aware of that. And we all do that at the European. I think it's important. Sorry, but I'd just like to add the fact that we're working on a uniform approach to influencer certificates at the European level, which is really important because it's given the cross-border nature of influencer marketing and social commerce. So we're working with the ESA. They set up actually a pan-European platform that gather all the certificates of Europe. Some countries are also really engaged in that, and in a real advanced way. We have this. We have already delivering a training under what we call Ad Ethics, which is a program France, Netherlands, Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Spain. And upcoming the next weeks, we will have the Greece this summer, Sweden, Italy, Belgium, and Romania. And later this year, we hope that Cyprus, Ireland, and Portugal will also join this Ad Ethics program, which is an influencer program. And we all share common rules, and we all develop our own local rules on that with materials to assess the risks that we talked about.
Great. So we see that there's an uptake in the certification schemes. And what you're also saying is that there's a harmonization that comes from actually bringing together these certifications under the umbrella of the European Advertising Standards Alliance.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. And Jerry, so when we're looking at these different certifications in different countries, what would be the technological issues that we see with multiple languages and multiple different rules that perhaps the certifications actually will try to solve, and legal frameworks like the GPSR, because that is a regulation, so it should be applicable the same way across different member states. But what kind of additional limitations remain when we're talking about monitoring from a more holistic perspective? So not at country level, which you have also been doing some research on.
Yeah, so what I would like to mention is that, of course, we're talking also about the impact of AI and the impact that it will have, especially on product safety. So, and the difference is that exactly Gen AI made everything way more, let's say, easy and doable. So in the past, maybe you had people write fake reviews. Now you have bots creating fake products and fake everything. And of course, from terms of product safety, we're talking about also, I would say, complex legal frameworks in the sense that it's not just the GPSR, but it's also per product. There might be also different standards, right? You're talking about toys or cosmetics and also digital products now that they involve AI. So I think this whole interplay between the legal frameworks like the GPSR and then maybe specific domain regulation, either it's a toy or a chatbot, then we're talking about a complex work for building all kinds of monitoring and compliance, let alone, as you mentioned, the multilinguality issues, just as because, of course, yeah, we have too many languages for good in Europe. So building such systems to work for every language is going to be even more challenging.
Thank you so much. And it's very important to note that also in research, there seems to be a more transnational perspective that is becoming important. And I'd like to mention the research of Jonathan Hardy, who's a professor of communications and media at the London College of Communication, who's also looking at different countries and trying to understand the governance, the legal governance structures there. And I'm sure that we can disseminate when time comes and there are some clear results from that project, the findings. Sven, I'm going to give you the last word, and I would like to come back to the thing that you mentioned about platforms, and especially when it comes to a legal environment that right now is really putting a lot of emphasis on a very big question, which is how do we protect our most vulnerable members of society, namely children, when they interact online? So, what's your take on that? And do you ever think about this type of protection?
Yeah, very good question. I saw in the chat as well that somebody said something about it, and they said about French legislation, but I think it's a European thing. It's also been done in Belgium now that we cannot advertise anything, of course, of tobacco, etc. But things like energy drinks and sugar and fat consumer product, I will say, cannot be advertised to people younger than 16. From an ethical point of view, absolutely agree. Of course, I think it's good that we think about these things with that from a sociological point of view. I also think it's very important. Um, but I have two concerns about this, and it is, for example, I'm a streamer on Twitch. Twitch does not communicate the age of the followers you have. So I have no way of knowing that my community is older or younger than 16. Know that they're I know that they're older than 13 because you cannot create a Twitch account under 13. But I have banned many people from my chat that I felt like, how old are you? We cannot. Also, that's also a thing in the rules of Twitch. We cannot ask our community how old they are. We cannot ask this because it could give a ground of discrimination. So that's also a very hard thing to navigate. And there's two takeaways from that. First of all, I cannot know. I would like to know because it's something that's also interesting for me, not only from an ethical point of view, but also from a strategic point of view. I think it's very interesting. But of course, in this case, I have this Red Bull fridge behind me because I'm sponsored by them. Yeah, how do I know? How do I know that my audience is not too young to actually be seeing this, to be fed this advertisement? So that's one question. But on the other hand, I kind of know my audience is older than 16. I feel that on many levels, and I also can see it in my followers on other platforms who do disclose the age. But then I'm thinking, what if there's a complaint? What if somebody says, this guy is promoting, I will say, Red Bull, and I'm pretty sure because he's playing video games, his audience is young. How will I prove this? And that's one more example of the platforms need to step up to the plate, really need to, while we are professionalizing, because we're being put an immense responsibility on our shoulders, which is fine. But I do believe that if we put all our shoulders together, and that's also what Mohammed was saying. If we put all our shoulders together, and if we really help this environment of new content creators, which is a new and very fascinating way of working, earning money, etc. They will professionalize and they will get better and they will know these things. But the platforms absolutely need to follow, and all of them need to follow. I know TikTok and Google are very much into them. We're also communicating with them, because I'm also a board member of the Influencer Marketing Alliance in Belgium. And I know we're communicating with them, but for example, with Twitch, we have no communication whatsoever. I'm a Twitch partner, Twitch streamer. I normally people would be a little bit scared to say this about your main platform, but I think it's very important to kind of touch the pain points as well. And this is one of the pain points. Some platforms maybe don't have enough people to actually respond, maybe don't want to respond. This is all, of course, in my head. This is fantasy. I don't have the facts to back that up, but the fact is that we don't get a response. So that's hard, very hard, and very difficult for a content creator to actually do this. And I'm very sure that it's not the only platform that has this issue.
Thanks so much for this and for shedding light on the actual practical implications of being in front of a camera and then actually not really knowing who you're talking to. And then what you're also saying is that you have some insight into maybe your parasociality back to your community, but it's always just something questionable. And then from a legal perspective, that's also perhaps a vulnerability for creators. Thanks a lot for this. Looking at the time, let's conclude with the two very specific questions that Josephine asked in the chat, one for Kostas and one for Mohammed. They deal with the French legislation. So in France, there is a new legislation that has very specific bans. For instance, there's a prohibition for the promotion of different types of, for the making of different types of ads. For instance, fast food, plastic surgery, alcohol, gambling, ultra fast fashion apparently has been added to the list. So let's start with Mohammed, and then perhaps Kostas, you can have a look at the other question as well. How does the certification interface with this law? What are your thoughts about that?
So, of course, the certification has been updated with this new legal framework. Certified profiles that was people that were content creators that were certified before the law needed to update their knowledge after this law. So passing this new version that have 2.0, this is the new major release of the certification. So they need to pass it to keep it up to date to validate the certificate. It's really important because we have many brands that have made it mandatory, such as L'Oreal France, big brand, as you know, of course, global brand, other brands. So they need to update it to continue their collaboration. So it's during the change of the deputies while adopting this law, some of them wanted to make it mandatory by the law, but finally, and we are fine with that, of course, because it's a self-regulation tool based on the voluntary. So make it mandatory would mean we make a legal frame profession with a specific status and a specific framework for that. So it was not the ID like the journalist or so on. But of course the certification is completely up to date with the law. We have this new bans product and the new way to disclose the partnership, and but we are still waiting some specific texts that the government must take. For example, there is a written contract that must be signed between the influencer and the advertiser or its agencies. Up to over a specific amount, but this amount, we don't know this amount. It must be fixed by decree, and we're still waiting some decrees. And so there are some gray areas that need to be cleared.
Thank you so much for that. And Kostas, lastly, the last word pertains to you. So, could this be held at European level outside of the scope of product safety, but as a general rule?
I have to admit, I don't know the details of the answer, so it's a different department of the European Commission that's dealing with it. There is an audiovisual media services directive that we have, but I don't know the exact details of that. I also think that it was revised not so long ago to also cover online content, but I don't know the details of what is covered under this or not. And given the fact that it's a directive, I would also imagine that member states have a margin of adding or deciding what exactly they would ban or not ban within their country in the implementation of this directive. So that's the only thing that I can reply to that question.
That's very important because in the future we will also be making more content for the Influencer Legal Hub on the interface between consumer protection and media law, which is a self-standing body of rules, as Kostas was mentioning, which I think in self-regulation has been incorporated more organically. But that is definitely a space to be looking at. Also looking at the time, we're a little bit over our time today, but with very exciting questions and exciting information that we got from our panelists. So allow me to once more thank Kostas, Mohammed, Gita, Jerry, and Sven for their participation today, but also to thank Julio, who's in front of me here, Isolde online, and specifically Laura, who has been our very kind support together with Victor from Ayanor, because we could not have done this webinar without them. Now, with no further ado, Barry, any actual final words? I know I've said this now 3 times, but Barry.
I'll be very brief. Thank you so much to everyone. It was a really, really interesting conversation. A lot of complexity was highlighted, a lot of different angles, but also a lot of convergence, I suppose, which is around, I suppose, the basic ethical principles involved, wanting to protect consumers, wanting to make sure that everyone's safe. So I just conclude by in that regard by pointing back to the Influencer Legal Hub. If you're an influencer, if you work with influencers, you'll find the basics there in an accessible and easy to digest manner. So just thank you to everyone again for a great session. I really appreciated it.
Great. Thank you very much, Barry. This brings us to an end. Don't forget to check the Influencer Legal Hub, and we're going to have the recording available very soon. Wishing everyone a fantastic week, and don't forget that product safety is important, and influencers should be reading into it. Have a great week, everyone.